There are many things that we consider important in this life, but have you ever stopped to consider what the most important things in life are? One day a man came to Jesus seeking assistance in a dispute that he was having with his brother over their inheritance. Under Jewish law, the oldest brother was to receive a double portion, as we find in Deuteronomy 21, verses 15 through 17. And we can only assume that this was a younger brother who wanted a larger amount from his father's estate. And it's interesting that Jesus did not comment on the man's request. Instead, he began to talk about greed and the desire to have more possessions. In order to illustrate his point, Jesus told a story, and we call it the parable of the rich fool. This parable demonstrates the danger of selfishness and greed. And the man in this story had become rich, blessed with bountiful harvest. But all he could think about was himself. He made big plans, but sadly these were interrupted by death. And Jesus called this man a fool, a word that means not only a lack of good sense or judgment, but also moral and spiritual deficiency. Now there are several things that we can learn from this rich fool. First of all, he had forgotten about other people. Notice all of the personal pronouns that he used. He was totally absorbed in himself, his possessions, and the good times that he was planning for himself. He could have used this surplus harvest to help other people, but he only thought selfishly of himself. The rich fool had also forgotten about God. Now, there was nothing wrong with being successful, and there continues today to be nothing wrong with being successful in your endeavors of life. But what matters is how that success is used. He had made big plans for the immediate future, but he had forgotten about eternity. He had failed to be rich toward God and was being held accountable for this. Well, following the negative example of the rich fool, Jesus gave some positive instructions on how to trust in God rather than in ourselves and our possessions. And he uses two very interesting examples. He uses ravens and lilies. Ravens were considered unclean birds and were seen as having very little value. And Jesus' point was that even though they were of little value, God still takes care of them. And the same was true of the lilies. And Jesus was probably referring to various types of flowers that were found growing wild in that part of the world. Today we might think of dandelions or some other type of wildflower. But most of us, we prefer a lush green lawn rather than having it filled with weeds, filled with those yellow flowers. But even dandelions show us the care that God has given to His creation. Jesus was using a lesser to greater type of illustration that was common at the time. If God takes care of the ravens and takes care of the plants that are growing on the hillsides, then does it not make sense as well that God will take care of us? We are the ones who are of greater value. God created man with a part of himself, with a spiritual identity. These other creations of God do not have those things. And is it not obvious, does it not make clear sense that if God is going to care for those lesser creations, that He is also going to care for His crowning creation? Jesus summed it up in the last few verses. Don't worry about things, but rather seek first God's kingdom. Focus on those things that have eternal value. Use your possessions for yourself, but also for others. Don't be like this rich fool. Don't store away your treasures on this earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Because those heavenly treasures are going to be the ones that count on the day of judgment. They are going to be there to speak for us when we stand before the judgment seat of Christ. They are going to be there as a testament to the kind of life that we've lived. Friends, we want to thank you for joining us for our study today. And we pray that God will bless you with a wonderful day.